The knock on my door at 7:30 on a Saturday morning was aggressive enough to wake my neighbor's dog 3 houses down. And I knew before I even opened it that this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. I pulled open the door to find a woman in her mid-50s standing on my porch, dressed like she was about to attend a country club brunch, complete with pearl necklace and perfectly styled blonde hair that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, and she held a leather-bound clipboard like it was a weapon. "Can I help you?" I asked, still groggy and definitely not prepared for whatever this was. "Are you Graham Foster?" she asked, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension that immediately put me on edge. "That's me. I'm Patricia Henderson, president of the Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association." She said this like she was announcing royalty. "I'm here about the eyesore you have parked in your driveway." I blinked at her, my brain still trying to catch up. "My trailer, if that's what you want to call it." According to the HOA bylaws, Section 12, Paragraph 4, no commercial vehicles, trailers, or recreational vehicles may be stored in plain view of the street. It must be moved immediately. I rubbed my face, trying to process this. I'd lived in Meadowbrook Hills in Boulder, Colorado for 3 years now, and nobody had ever said anything about my trailer before. It was a standard enclosed cargo trailer, white with no markings, parked neatly in my driveway alongside my truck. "Look, Mrs. Henderson, Miss Henderson," she corrected sharply. "Right. Miss Henderson. That trailer isn't just sitting there taking up space. It's essential equipment for my volunteer work with Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue. I need quick access to it for emergency callouts." Her expression didn't soften even slightly. "I don't care if you're storing the Hope Diamond in there. The rules are the rules, Mr. Foster. The trailer is a violation and it needs to be moved within 48 hours or you'll be fined $500. $500. My voice went up an octave. "For parking my own trailer in my own driveway. Those are the consequences for violations. You should have read your HOA agreement more carefully before purchasing in this neighborhood." She handed me a formal violation notice from her clipboard. 48 hours. Good day. She turned on her heel and marched back down my walkway like a general leaving the battlefield, climbing into a spotless silver Mercedes and driving away. I stood there for a moment, looking at the notice in my hand, then at my trailer. It was a 20-foot enclosed trailer, nothing fancy, but it contained thousands of dollars worth of search and rescue equipment. Ropes, harnesses, medical supplies, emergency shelter gear, communication equipment, specialized tools for technical rescues. Everything my team might need when we got called out to find a lost hiker or rescue someone injured in the backcountry. The whole point of keeping it at my house was rapid deployment. When someone went missing in the mountains, every minute counted. We didn't have time to drive across town to a storage facility, hook up the trailer, and then head out. Lives depended on our response time. I went back inside and immediately called my team leader, Marcus Chen. "Graham, what's up?" Marcus answered on the second ring, sounding much more awake than I felt. "Got a problem. HOA just hit me with a violation notice. They want my equipment trailer moved off my property within 48 hours. There was a pause. "You're kidding." "Wish I was." "Some woman named Patricia Henderson just showed up at my door threatening me with a $500 fine if I don't comply." "That's ridiculous. Doesn't she know what that trailer is for?" I tried to tell her. "She doesn't care. Said rules are rules." Marcus sighed heavily. "Okay, let me make some calls. Maybe we can get the fire department or county emergency services to back us up, explain the situation. In the meantime, don't move that trailer. We might get a call out any time." I wasn't planning to. I just wanted to give you a heads up that this might become a thing. Keep me posted. And Graham, don't antagonize the HOA lady. No promises, I said, but Marcus had already hung up. I spent the rest of Saturday fuming and researching. I pulled out my HOA agreement, a document I'd admittedly only skimmed when I bought the house, and found the section Patricia had referenced. Sure enough, there it was in black and white. No trailers, RVs, or commercial vehicles visible from the street. But there was also language about reasonable accommodations for emergency services volunteers. I'd been a volunteer firefighter before joining search and rescue, and several neighbors were current or former first responders. Nobody had ever enforced this rule before. I started documenting everything, taking photos of my trailer, screenshots of the violation notice, and began drafting an appeal letter. I wasn't going to let some power-hungry HOA president interfere with legitimate emergency response capabilities. Sunday passed quietly, but Monday morning brought another knock at my door. This time it was a guy around my age, late 30s, wearing jeans and a polo shirt with the HOA logo embroidered on it. "Graham Foster?" he asked apologetically. "Yeah. I'm Derek Williams, HOA compliance officer. I'm here to verify the violation and take photos for our records. I'm sorry about this, man. Patricia's been on a rampage lately." So I gathered. "Look, Derek, that trailer contains search and rescue equipment. I'm a volunteer with Rocky Mountain SAR. This isn't some project trailer or a camper. It's emergency response equipment." Derek looked uncomfortable. "I hear you, and honestly, I think Patricia is being unreasonable, but she's got the board backing her up on this. Between you and me, she's been looking for violations everywhere since she got elected president 6 months ago. You're the 4th person this month." "4th? What's her problem?" "She thinks being strict about the rules will increase property values. She's not wrong that some people let things get out of hand, but she's gone overboard." He took a few photos with his phone. "I'd suggest coming to the next board meeting on Thursday. Plead your case in front of everyone. Maybe if the other board members hear the full story, they'll grant you an exception." "Thursday. My 48 hours is up Wednesday." Patricia extended it when I told her we needed to complete the documentation process. "You've got until Friday now." It wasn't much, but it was something. "Thanks, Derek. I appreciate the heads up." "No problem. And seriously, come to that meeting. Don't just roll over on this." After Derek left, I called Marcus again and updated him. He'd already reached out to County Emergency Management, and they were drafting a letter of support explaining the importance of distributed equipment storage for volunteer rescue teams. The county coordinator, Jessica Martinez, had been appalled when she heard about the violation notice. Tuesday, I got a call from my neighbor, Steve Thompson, who lived 2 doors down. "Graham, I heard about your trailer situation. Patricia came after my boat last month, said it was too visible from the street even though it's on a trailer in my side yard behind a fence." "What did you do?" "Ended up moving it to a storage place off Highway 36. Cost me $100 a month now." I wanted to fight it, but my wife didn't want the hassle. He paused. "But your situation is different, man. That's emergency equipment. You shouldn't have to move it." "I don't plan to. I'm going to the board meeting Thursday." "Good, I'll be there too." "I'm not on the board, but I want to hear how they justify this." Wednesday brought more support from unexpected places. The local newspaper, the Boulder County Tribune, somehow got wind of the story, and a reporter named Amanda Sullivan called me for an interview. "Mr. Foster, is it true the HOA is trying to force you to remove search and rescue equipment from your property?" I was careful with my words. "The HOA has issued a violation notice regarding my equipment trailer, yes. I'm working through the appeal process." But this trailer contains emergency response equipment. That's correct. I'm a volunteer with Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue. The trailer stores thousands of dollars worth of technical rescue gear, medical supplies, and other equipment we need for rapid deployment when someone goes missing or gets injured in the backcountry. And the HOA wants this removed from your property. According to their interpretation of the bylaws, yes. Can I get a statement from the HOA? You'd have to contact them directly. Patricia Henderson is the president. The article ran online Wednesday afternoon and in print Thursday morning. The headline read, HOA targets volunteer rescuers' emergency equipment. It was fair and balanced, presenting both my perspective and a brief statement from Patricia defending the HOA's position that rules must be applied uniformly. But the comments section exploded. Hundreds of people weighed in, almost all of them supporting me and criticizing the HOA. Several people shared their own horror stories about Patricia Henderson and the Meadowbrook Hills HOA. Apparently, she'd been making enemies all over the neighborhood. Thursday evening, I drove to the community center where the HOA held their monthly meetings. I arrived 15 minutes early and found the parking lot already packed. Steve was waiting for me by the entrance. Dude, I think half the neighborhood showed up. Word spread about your situation. We walked inside to find the meeting room set up with rows of folding chairs facing a long table at the front where the board members sat. Patricia was in the center seat, flanked by 4 other board members I didn't recognize. The room was filled to capacity, easily 75 or 80 people, with more standing in the back. Patricia looked annoyed by the turnout. She gavelled the meeting to order with sharp raps that demanded silence. We have a full agenda tonight, so let's keep things moving. First order of business is approval of last month's minutes. Point of order. Someone called from the audience. It was a woman I'd seen around the neighborhood but never formally met. I think we should address the Graham Foster situation first. That's why most of us are here. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Patricia's jaw tightened. That matter will be addressed under new business at the end of the meeting, as is proper procedure. That's ridiculous, another voice called out. We're all here now. Let's deal with it. I am following Robert's Rules of Order, which govern these meetings. We will proceed with the agenda as planned. This was going to be a long meeting. Patricia methodically worked through every single item on the agenda with excruciating detail. Budget reports, landscaping contracts, pool maintenance schedules, upcoming community events. She was clearly stalling, probably hoping people would leave. But nobody left. If anything, the crowd grew more restless and annoyed. Finally, after nearly 90 minutes, Patricia reached the end of her agenda. New business. Item 1, appeal of violation notice issued to Graham Foster of 2847 Meadowbrook Drive. Mr. Foster, you have 5 minutes to present your case. I stood up and walked to the front of the room, turning to face my neighbors. Thank you. I'll keep this brief because I think most of you already know the situation. I'm a volunteer with Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue, and I keep an equipment trailer in my driveway because rapid response is critical when someone's life is on the line. The HOA has issued a violation notice claiming this trailer violates the bylaws. I held up a packet of documents. I've brought letters of support from County Emergency Management, the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, and the Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue Coordinator. All of them explain why distributed equipment storage is essential for volunteer rescue operations. When we get called out at 2 in the morning because a hiker is lost on the Continental Divide, I don't have time to drive to a storage facility across town. Patricia interrupted. Mr. Foster, your time, let him finish. Someone shouted from the audience. The bylaws include provisions for reasonable accommodations for emergency services. I continued. I'm asking for that accommodation. This isn't a recreational vehicle or a project trailer. This is life-saving equipment that serves our entire community. Applause erupted as I finished. Patricia had to gavel for order. Thank you, Mr. Foster. The board will now discuss the matter. One of the other board members, an older man I later learned was named Richard Kowalski, spoke up immediately. Patricia, I think we should grant the exception. This is exactly the kind of situation the emergency services accommodation was written for. The rules don't specify which emergency equipment qualifies, Patricia countered. If we make an exception for Mr. Foster, where does it end? Everyone will claim their trailer contains something important. That's absurd, another board member, a woman named Susan Park, chimed in. We're not talking about someone's fishing boat. This is verified search and rescue equipment. We have documentation from county officials. Irrelevant. The bylaws are clear. No trailers visible from the street, period. The audience erupted in angry shouts. People were standing up, pointing at Patricia, voices rising in a cacophony of protest. Derek Williams, sitting at a side table, looked mortified. Richard Kowalski raised his voice over the chaos. I move that we grant Graham Foster a permanent exception to the trailer restriction based on his verified status as a volunteer emergency responder. I second, Susan Park said immediately. We need to discuss this further, Patricia protested. You've already discussed it into the ground, Richard shot back. Let's vote. All in favor of granting the exception. 3 hands went up. Richard, Susan, and a younger board member I didn't know, opposed. Patricia's hand shot up along with one other member, a middle-aged man who'd been silent all night. Motion passes 3-2, Richard announced. The room erupted in applause and cheers. I felt relief wash over me. It was done. I could keep my trailer, but Patricia wasn't finished. She stood up, her face flushed with anger. This is a mockery of proper procedure. You've all been manipulated by media coverage and public pressure. This sets a dangerous precedent. Sit down, Patricia, Susan said firmly. The vote is done. Graham keeps his trailer. We'll see about that. Patricia grabbed her papers and stormed out of the room, leaving the other board members looking at each other in surprise. After the meeting, I was surrounded by neighbors congratulating me and sharing their own Patricia Henderson horror stories. Steve introduced me to at least a dozen people who'd all had run-ins with her over various alleged violations. She tried to fine me for having a vegetable garden in my front yard, one woman told me. Said it wasn't aesthetically appropriate. She cited me for parking my work truck in my driveway, a man added. I'm a plumber. It has my company logo on it, so she called it a commercial vehicle. Richard Kowalski pulled me aside as the crowd thinned out. Graham, I apologize for how this played out. Patricia has been a nightmare since she got elected. Several of us are working on organizing a recall vote, but these things take time. In the meantime, you're all set. Keep your trailer right where it is. Thank you. I really appreciate you and Susan standing up for common sense. It's what we should have done from the start. I honestly didn't know about your situation until I saw the newspaper article. Patricia handles most of the violation notices directly. I drove home that night feeling victorious, but also uneasy. Patricia's parting comment about, "We'll see about that," stuck in my mind. She didn't seem like the type to accept defeat gracefully. Friday morning proved me right. I was checking my mailbox when Derek Williams pulled up, looking even more apologetic than before. Graham, I'm sorry, but I have to deliver this. He handed me another official-looking document. It was a notice from Patricia, claiming that the board's vote was invalid because proper notification procedures weren't followed and demanding a revote at next month's meeting. Until then, she was imposing daily fines of $100 for each day the trailer remained in violation. You've got to be kidding me. Can she do this? Derek looked miserable. Technically, as president, she can impose interim fines pending board review. But Richard is already fighting this. He called me this morning furious about it. There's going to be an emergency board meeting tomorrow. What happens if she just keeps blocking this? Honestly, this might end up in court. Patricia seems determined to die on this hill. I called Marcus immediately. We've got a bigger problem. She's doubling down. I heard. The newspaper reporter called me for comment. This is going to blow up, Graham. Are you okay with this becoming a public fight? At this point, I don't have a choice. If I back down now, she wins, and the next volunteer with emergency equipment gets the same treatment. Okay. I'm reaching out to our state coordinator and our legal contacts. We might need to get official legal representation involved. The emergency board meeting Saturday morning was even more contentious than Thursday's meeting. Patricia tried to argue procedural violations, but Richard Kowalski came prepared with the HOA's own bylaws and governing documents proving that Thursday's vote was completely valid. You're just upset you lost, Susan Park said bluntly. This is personal now, Patricia, and it's making the entire board look ridiculous. I am upholding our community standards, Patricia insisted, her voice rising. If we let one person break the rules, everyone will think they can. He's not breaking the rules. Susan's voice matched Patricia's volume. We granted him an exception through a legitimate vote. You're the one breaking the rules by ignoring that vote and imposing unauthorized fines. The argument went in circles for over an hour before Richard finally called for another vote, this time explicitly invalidating Patricia's fine schedule and reaffirming my exception. The vote passed 4-1, with only Patricia dissenting, but Patricia still wasn't done. She stood up and addressed the room with icy composure. I'm formally notifying this board that I will be seeking legal counsel regarding this matter. The HOA's insurance will cover the costs of defending our bylaws against this clear violation of community standards. You're going to sue him. Richard looked shocked. Over a trailer? Are you insane? I'm protecting property values and community integrity. If this board won't do it, I'll do it myself. She walked out again, and this time the remaining board members just sat in stunned silence. Susan finally spoke. We need to consider removing her as president. This has gone way too far. Agreed, Richard said. But we need to do it by the book. Let's get legal advice on the proper procedure for removing a board president. Over the next week, things escalated rapidly. Patricia, true to her word, hired a lawyer and filed a civil action against me in Boulder County Court, claiming I was in violation of the HOA covenants, and seeking an injunction to force removal of the trailer, plus payment of fines totaling $3,500. The local news picked up the story. A TV crew from Denver came out and filmed my trailer, interviewed me, and tried unsuccessfully to get Patricia to comment on camera. The story ran on the evening news under the headline "Search and Rescue Volunteer Sued by HOA." Public opinion was overwhelmingly on my side. The comments on news articles and social media were brutal toward Patricia and the HOA. Several local politicians even weighed in, with a Boulder City Council member calling the lawsuit an absurd waste of resources that could endanger lives. Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue set up a legal defense fund for me, though I hoped it wouldn't come to that. Our organization's insurance carrier was reviewing the situation to see if they could provide legal representation. Then, 10 days after Patricia filed her lawsuit, we got a call-out. A 16-year-old girl had gone missing on a hiking trail in Rocky Mountain National Park. She'd been separated from her family group and hadn't been seen for 4 hours. Weather was moving in, with temperature dropping and rain forecast. I was at work when I got the alert on my phone. I immediately called my boss, explained the situation, and rushed home. My trailer was already hooked up to my truck because I'd been paranoid about Patricia trying something. I grabbed my personal gear, double-checked that the trailer was properly secured, and headed out. The search base was set up at the Glacier Gorge trailhead. Marcus was already there coordinating teams. 24 volunteers from various search and rescue units across the Front Range had responded. "Graham, good you're here. I need you leading Team 3. We're sweeping the North Basin. Your trailer's got the technical gear. Everything we need. Perfect. There's exposed terrain up there. If she went off trail, we might need climbing gear." I spent the next 7 hours hiking through increasingly rough terrain, calling out the girl's name, coordinating with other teams via radio. The weather deteriorated just as forecast, with cold rain making rocks slippery and visibility poor. It was Team 5 that found her, hypothermic and scared but alive, sheltering under an overhang about a mile off the main trail. She tried to take a shortcut and gotten completely turned around. The technical rope gear from my trailer was used to safely lower her down a steep section she'd climbed up but couldn't climb back down. By the time we got her back to the trailhead and into an ambulance, it was past midnight. Everyone was exhausted, soaked, and cold, but the girl was going to be fine. Her parents were crying with relief, hugging everyone who'd been part of the search. As I was loading gear back into my trailer, a Boulder County Sheriff's deputy approached me. "You're Graham Foster?" "Yeah." "Deputy Martinez, I've been following your HOA situation in the news. This is your trailer they want you to get rid of." "That's the one." He looked at the equipment we were loading. "That's insane. You know they called my office about you." "What? Who did?" "The HOA president. Patricia Henderson. She filed a complaint last week claiming you were operating an illegal commercial enterprise from your residence. We had to explain to her that volunteer search and rescue isn't a commercial activity." I felt my blood pressure spike. "She's calling the sheriff's office now." We told her there was no violation of any county ordinances and declined to take any action. Figured you should know she tried, though. After the rescue, the newspaper ran another article, this time featuring an interview with the rescued girl's mother, praising the rapid response of search and rescue teams. She specifically mentioned how crucial it was that volunteers like me had immediate access to equipment. The article included a quote from her. "I'm horrified to learn that the person who helped save my daughter is being sued for storing that exact equipment at his home. How many minutes would have been wasted if he'd had to drive across town to get his gear first?" In a life or death situation, those minutes matter. Public pressure on Patricia intensified. The HOA's Facebook page was flooded with critical comments. People were showing up to board meetings demanding Patricia's resignation. Several residents started a petition to recall her as president. But Patricia remained defiant. In a statement through her lawyer, she maintained that emotional appeals don't override legal property covenants and that she was protecting the long-term interests of the community. The court date for her injunction request was set for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, a formal recall petition was filed against Patricia with enough signatures to trigger a special election. Under the HOA bylaws, that election had to happen within 30 days, 2 weeks before the court date. Something unexpected happened. I was working in my garage when Steve Thompson came running over. "Graham, you need to see this. Patricia just got arrested." "What? For what?" Come on." I followed Steve down the street to where a small crowd had gathered. Two Boulder Police Department patrol cars were parked in front of a house 3 blocks from mine, lights flashing. Patricia was being led out in handcuffs, looking furious and humiliated. Derek Williams was in the crowd, his face pale. "I can't believe this. What happened?" I asked. Patricia was the one who vandalized Jim Morrison's truck last month, and Kelly Anderson's fence, and spray-painted graffiti on the community center. She was setting people up for violations. How did they figure it out? Jim installed security cameras after his truck got keyed. Caught her on video last night vandalizing his boat. When police arrested her, they found paint cans in her garage that matched the graffiti at the community center. I stared in disbelief as Patricia was loaded into the back of a patrol car. All those violation notices she'd been issuing, all the property damage incidents over the past 6 months that had led to residents getting cited for not maintaining their property. She'd been causing the problems herself. The story dominated local news for days. Patricia Henderson was charged with multiple counts of criminal mischief and vandalism. Police investigation revealed a pattern of deliberate property damage targeting specific residents, followed by HOA violation notices from Patricia when they didn't immediately repair the damage. Her motivation, according to the investigation, was partly about control and partly about money. Each violation notice came with fines, which went to the HOA budget that Patricia controlled. She'd been essentially creating a revenue stream by vandalizing properties and then fining the owners. The legal case against me fell apart immediately. Patricia's lawyer withdrew from representing the HOA, citing conflict of interest and ethical concerns. The HOA board voted unanimously to drop all legal action against me and issued a formal apology. Richard Kowalski called me personally. "Graham, on behalf of the board and the community, I am deeply sorry for what you went through. We're going to be reviewing all of Patricia's violation notices to see how many others were based on fraudulent premises. We're also implementing new oversight procedures so this can never happen again." I appreciate that, Richard. Honestly, I'm just glad it's over. We'd also like to make a donation to Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue from the HOA Community Fund, if you'll accept it. Consider it our way of thanking you for your service and apologizing for the harassment. The donation turned out to be $5,000, which our team used to upgrade some of our aging equipment. The trailer stayed right where it was in my driveway, and the HOA added an explicit exemption to their bylaws for emergency services vehicles and equipment. Patricia Henderson pleaded guilty to multiple counts of criminal mischief and was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, plus restitution to all the property owners she damaged. She was also permanently banned from serving on any HOA board in Colorado as part of her probation agreement. The recall election became moot since she was removed from the board automatically due to her criminal conviction. Susan Park was elected as the new HOA president, and one of her first actions was establishing a violation review committee to prevent any single person from having unchecked power over enforcement. 3 months after everything settled down, I was working in my yard when a car pulled up and a family got out. I recognized them immediately as the parents and sister of the girl we'd rescued in Rocky Mountain National Park. "Mr. Foster, I'm Jennifer Reynolds. I don't know if you remember us." "Of course. How's your daughter doing?" "Emma's doing great. She wanted to come thank you herself, but she's at a school trip today. We wanted to bring you this." She handed me a framed photo of their family standing on a mountain peak. "Emma went back and completed that hike last month with proper preparation this time. We wanted you to know how much your service meant to our family." Her husband added, "We also heard about what you went through with your HOA. The fact that you were being sued for having the exact equipment that helped save our daughter just seemed so wrong. We're glad it worked out. Thank you. That means a lot. And I'm really glad Emma's okay and got back out on the trails. That's the best outcome we can ask for." After they left, I stood in my driveway looking at my trailer. It was just a white cargo trailer, nothing special to look at. But inside was the gear that helped bring people home safely. The ropes that could lower someone off a cliff, the medical supplies that could stabilize an injury, the communication equipment that kept teams coordinated during complex searches. Steve walked over carrying 2 beers. "Thought you might need one of these after that visit." "Thanks, man." I took the beer and we stood there in companionable silence for a moment. "You know, I've been thinking about volunteering for search and rescue myself," Steve said. "After seeing what you went through and how important that work is, I want to help." "Really? That's great. We can always use more volunteers. Training starts next month. Count me in." "And Graham, I'm sorry I didn't fight harder for my boat. If I had, maybe Patricia wouldn't have felt so emboldened when she came after you. You made the decision that was right for your family at the time." No apologies needed. More neighbors started coming outside as the evening cooled down. Someone started grilling, someone else brought out music, and before long we had an impromptu block party happening. People who'd barely known each other 6 months ago were now friends, brought together partly by shared outrage over Patricia's actions and partly by a renewed appreciation for the community we all shared. Derek Williams showed up with his wife and kids. He'd been worried about losing his compliance officer position after everything that happened, but the board had kept him on with clear guidelines about how violations should be handled going forward. "Graham, thanks for not holding my part in this against me," Derek said. "I was just trying to do my job, but I should have pushed back harder against Patricia. You helped me out when you could. That's what mattered." As the sun set over the Front Range, casting orange and pink light across the mountains, I felt genuinely lucky. Lucky to live in a place where neighbors looked out for each other. Lucky to be part of a search and rescue team that saved lives, and lucky that common sense had ultimately prevailed. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Training exercise this Sunday. Your trailer ready to go." I looked at my driveway where the trailer sat, right where it belonged. "Always ready," I texted back. The next HOA meeting was surprisingly pleasant. Susan Park ran things efficiently and respectfully, focusing on actual community needs rather than nitpicking violations. There was discussion about the community pool schedule, planning for a neighborhood watch program, and organizing a cleanup day at the local park. At the end of the meeting, Susan addressed the room. "I want to take a moment to recognize Graham Foster. As many of you know, Graham serves as a volunteer with Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue, and he recently helped rescue a missing teenager in Rocky Mountain National Park. The HOA board has created a new community service recognition program, and Graham is our first honoree." She presented me with a plaque that read, "In recognition of exceptional community service and dedication to saving lives." There was genuine applause from everyone present. "We're also announcing a new policy," Susan continued. "Any resident who serves as a volunteer with emergency services, whether that's fire, rescue, medical, or law enforcement, will receive automatic exemptions from vehicle and equipment restrictions. We should be supporting our volunteers, not making their lives harder." The policy passed unanimously, and several other residents who I didn't know were volunteer firefighters or emergency medical technicians came up to thank me afterward. I never kept my equipment at home because I was worried about HOA issues. one firefighter told me. Now I can, which means faster response times. Thank you for fighting this. Life returned to normal over the following months, or at least as normal as life gets when you're on call for search and rescue operations. We had callouts for lost hikers, injured climbers, and even one case where we had to search for an elderly man with dementia who'd wandered away from a care facility. Each time, I'd hook up my trailer and head out, knowing that the equipment inside might be the difference between life and death for someone. And each time, I was grateful that I didn't have to waste precious minutes driving across town to a storage facility first. The story of Patricia Henderson became something of a legend in Boulder County HOA circles. Other HOA boards started implementing reforms to prevent similar abuses of power. There were seminars on balanced enforcement, community engagement, and the importance of flexibility in applying rules. One evening about a year after everything had settled, I was invited to speak at a county-wide HOA leadership conference. They wanted me to share my story as a cautionary tale about what happens when enforcement becomes more important than community. Standing in front of 200 HOA board members from across Boulder County, I kept my message simple. HOA rules exist to protect property values and quality of life, but they're tools, not weapons. When we forget that, we're all neighbors trying to build a good community together. When rules become more important than people, we've lost our way. I talked about the importance of communication, about asking questions before issuing violations, about considering the context and purpose behind rules rather than just blindly enforcing them. If Patricia Henderson had taken 5 minutes to ask me about my trailer instead of immediately threatening fines, none of this would have happened. We could have worked something out from the start. Instead, it took months of conflict, legal action, and ultimately her criminal behavior being exposed to resolve what should have been a simple conversation between neighbors. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Several board members came up afterward to share their own stories of trying to balance rule enforcement with common sense, and how they were working to create more flexible, community-focused approaches. One president from an HOA in Louisville said, "We had a similar situation with a nurse who needed to park close to her house because she worked night shifts and felt safer having a short walk from her car to her door. Someone complained about her car being too visible from the street. After hearing your story, we're revising our policies to explicitly allow accommodations for work schedules, emergency services, and disability needs." The changes rippled outward. Boulder County updated its model HOA bylaws to include stronger language about reasonable accommodations and community service exemptions. The state HOA Ombudsman's Office even created new guidelines recommending that all Colorado HOAs adopt similar policies. Back in Meadowbrook Hills, the neighborhood had genuinely come together. We organized regular community events, not the forced formal affairs that Patricia used to mandate, but casual gatherings where people actually enjoyed spending time together. Block parties, holiday celebrations, community garage sales. Steve Thompson did join search and rescue and became one of our most dedicated volunteers. His wife, Linda, started a neighborhood emergency preparedness group, teaching first aid and disaster readiness skills. The house where Patricia had lived eventually sold. A young couple with 2 kids moved in and they fit right into the neighborhood. When I introduced myself, I mentioned that I was with search and rescue and had a trailer in my driveway, just so they knew. The husband laughed. We heard about what happened with the previous HOA president. That story was actually one reason we felt good about buying here. Any community that stands up for common sense and supports their volunteers is a place we want to live. 2 years after the whole situation started, I was featured in a magazine article about volunteer search and rescue operations in Colorado. The article included a photo of me standing next to my trailer in my driveway, with the mountains visible in the background. The caption read, "Graham Foster, Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue Volunteer, with the equipment trailer that sparked a community battle over HOA rules and ultimately led to statewide policy reforms supporting emergency services volunteers." I had that article framed and hung it in my garage, not because I was proud of the conflict, but because it reminded me that sometimes standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, can lead to positive changes that benefit everyone. The trailer still sits in my driveway today. It's weathered a few Colorado winters since all this started, acquired some new scratches and dents from rough mountain roads, but it's as ready for deployment as ever. The gear inside has been used in dozens of rescues, bringing lost hikers home, evacuating injured climbers, searching for missing children. Every time I see it sitting there, I think about that Saturday morning when Patricia Henderson knocked on my door with her clipboard and her attitude, threatening me with fines for having the audacity to store emergency equipment at my home. I think about how her obsession with control and power turned into criminal behavior that hurt innocent people. I think about how close things came to having this equipment moved away from my home, potentially costing crucial minutes in emergency responses. But mostly I think about Emma Reynolds, the 16-year-old girl who's alive today partly because my team had rapid access to the gear we needed. I think about her family's gratitude and the photo they gave me that still hangs on my wall. That's what really matters. Not property values or HOA bylaws or enforcement procedures. People matter. Lives matter. Community matters. The sun was setting again over the Flatirons as I finished working on my trailer one evening, restocking supplies after a training exercise. My phone buzzed with a text from Susan Park. "Graham, just wanted to let you know the HOA received another thank you letter today. This one's from a family whose grandfather you helped find last month when he wandered off during a camping trip. They're asking if there's anything they can do to support search and rescue. I'm going to suggest they donate to your team. Thought you'd want to know." I smiled and texted back a thank you. It was a good reminder that the work continues, that people still get lost and hurt and need help, and that being prepared to respond quickly can make all the difference. Later that evening, Marcus called. "Hey Graham, we've got a potential situation developing. Hiker overdue in Indian Peaks Wilderness. They're giving it another hour before calling an official search, but wanted us on standby. You good to go if we get the call?" I looked at my trailer, packed and ready. Always good to go. That's what I like to hear. I'll keep you posted. I went inside and started gathering my personal gear, laying out my pack and warm layers just in case. Being ready meant being prepared, and preparation saved lives. As I organized my equipment, I heard kids playing outside, neighbors chatting over fences, someone's music drifting across the evening air. Normal neighborhood sounds in a normal neighborhood where people looked out for each other. It had taken a crisis to get here, a conflict that could have torn the community apart, but instead brought us together. Patricia Henderson had tried to use rules as a weapon to control others, but in the end, she'd actually created something better than what existed before. A neighborhood that valued substance over appearances, people over paperwork, service over strict enforcement. The next morning, word came that the overdue hiker had made it out safely on their own, just late returning from a longer route than planned. No rescue needed. But we'd been ready, equipment staged, Volunteers on standby, prepared to deploy within minutes if necessary. That's how it should work. That's why the trailer sits in my driveway, ready to roll at a moment's notice. And nobody, not Patricia Henderson or any other power-hungry HOA official, was ever going to change that again.